They didn't just betray me, they drugged me, filmed me, and buried the evidence under glitter and sisterhood. But I'm still breathing, and I've turned survival into strategy. 1 year from that night, they'll watch their own lies play out on screen, scene by scene, and not one of them will see it coming. It started with citrus hairspray, that chemically sweet smell every Sigma Rose girl sprayed like it was identity. The vote room always smelled like that. Sharp, artificial citrus and over-polished nails. I remember the sound their fingers made tapping the table, glassy and precise. They raised their hands without looking at me. I stood in the center like a misbehaving pledge, not a sophomore with a perfect GPA and a social calendar they all used to orbit. No one met my eyes, not even Maddie, who used to drunkenly braid my hair on the common room floor. Not even Hannah, who cried on my shoulder when her high school boyfriend dumped her via screenshot. Not even Claire, who once whispered that I was the only reason she hadn't dropped out freshman year. 13 hands. 13 manicured, trembling hands raised in the air. It wasn't a trial. It wasn't even a conversation. They didn't say what I did. They didn't have to. "You've been found in violation of the Sisterhood Code," the chapter president said, in a voice that sounded like someone practicing a TED Talk. "Effective immediately, your membership is revoked." That was it. No explanation, no defense. Just erasure. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I walked out without a word and didn't look back. At least, not visibly. But inside, something cracked. And when something cracks, light gets in. Or something else does. 3 weeks earlier. That's when it happened. The night of the Rose Gala. The biggest Sigma event of the semester. Everyone in gold. Everyone pretending to care about charity. Everyone drinking from party cups filled with watered-down liquor and ambition. I remember mine tasted too sweet. Maddie handed it to me herself, her lipstick perfect, her smile too wide. I sipped it. Then again. And something inside me slipped sideways. The room started to bend. Music warped, like it was underwater. I remember flashes. Claire laughing with her head back. Hannah scrolling on her phone in the corner. Maddie, leaning in, brushing glitter off my shoulder. She smelled like that god-awful rose glitter body spray she always used, like saccharine rot. But it wasn't the smell that stayed with me, it was the mirror behind her. In the mirror, I saw her arm move, a flick of her wrist, a shimmer of pink mist above my cup. Then black. When I woke up, I was in the campus PD holding room, a headache pounding like someone trying to hammer me back into place. The officer said someone found me unconscious near the East Hall dorms. My phone was unlocked, my bag gone. I'd vomited on my shoes. He said it kindly, like he was used to stories like this. Maybe he was. I asked if I'd been drugged. He shrugged and handed me a form. I wasn't ready to sign anything. Not yet. When I finally got my phone back, I saw it. A video. Blurry. Cropped. Me laughing, slurring, staggering with my skirt twisted and my bra strap showing. Posted to my own private story. I had no memory of it. The comments rolled in like tiny cuts. "Girl, what is this? You okay?" Yikes. Within 2 hours, my account was gone. Deactivated or reported. I never found out. But before that, I managed to screenshot something. In the background of the video behind me was a mirror. And in the mirror, a blur of a girl's arm, mid-spray, a can of rose glitter aerosol misting into the air. And that was the moment I knew. It wasn't an accident. They wanted me to spiral, to seem unstable, to question myself. But they missed something. I don't unravel. I rethread. Back in the vote room, I saw that same glint of spray can residue on Maddie's wrist. It caught the fluorescent light just so. That detail, that tiny reflection, became my anchor. I could have walked away. I could have transferred, ghosted, started over. But some girls don't vanish. Some of us haunt. And I've learned how to weaponize memory, not with tantrums, not with rumors, with craft, with control, with story. They tried to rewrite mine, but I still know the first draft, and now I'm the one holding the pen. I spent the first day home deleting myself. Instagram, gone. TikTok, gone. LinkedIn, pointless, gone. Every post, every group chat, every smile I'd curated into a digital persona now looked like evidence against me. Not of a crime, but of a character assassination I never saw coming. It wasn't just the silence after the vote, it was the precision of it. Overnight, I became invisible. Blocked, unfollowed, unfriended, even on Venmo. Like I had died and no one wanted to catch the ghost. But I wasn't dead. I was watching. First, I screenshot everything, even things that seemed irrelevant at first. Claire's stories with the caption, "Girl Gang," on the night I blacked out. Hannah's close friend's post from the same night, with a blurry wrist raised over a red Solo cup. My own story, the deep-cropped video that vanished after 24 hours, but not before I grabbed the frame with the mirror in it. That mirror. That was everything. There, in the reflection, was the angle they didn't mean to include. A girl's arm, mid-spray, a glittering mist descending above the drink I was holding. Her face wasn't visible, but I remembered the wrist. Maddie always wore that same stack of gold and rose-beaded bracelets, handmade from some boutique she pretended was ethical. The evidence was scattered, but it was there. And that terrified them. Not because it showed something explicit, but because it was real. I started documenting everything. I went through my Venmo feed and searched keywords. It was almost too easy. One line, Claire to Hannah. Party roses, $10, dated the night I woke up in campus police custody. Then Claire to Uber, 2:13 a.m. Drop-off location? A motel just outside town. One I'd never been to, but I knew the address. I wrote it down. Next, I cataloged every deleted post I could find, stories screenshotted by mutuals before they disappeared, messages that auto-deleted in Snapchat but left a shadow of context in my mind, photos that didn't look like anything until you zoomed in and saw the bracelet, or the spray can, or the reflection in the glass behind the girl posing. That's the thing about cameras. They're honest, even when people aren't. By nightfall, I had a thick stack of images, screen grabs, transaction receipts. I printed them. I pinned them up on my bedroom corkboard like a true crime wall. I wasn't just trying to prove what happened to me. I was building a timeline, a storyboard. On the first page of my old notebook, I wrote, "If they can fabricate a memory, I can storyboard a fact." I circled that phrase until the pen bled through. The next day, I ordered a body camera. $39. Small enough to clip under a coat lapel. I wore it on campus for a week straight, not because I expected anything to happen, but because I needed the habit. Because the next time one of them came near me, I wanted a record that didn't come from shaky memory or trauma. I bought a UV nail lamp, the kind they use for gel manicures. Not for nails, for testing something else. See, glitter sprays like the one Maddie used contain compounds that fluoresce under ultraviolet light. I'd done my research. Even weeks later, residues can still glow if they're not fully washed out. I dug the dress I wore that night out of my laundry bin. It smelled like shame and cheap perfume. I put it under the lamp. The neckline lit up, shimmering particles across the chest and shoulder, like a dusting of highlighter I never applied. I sat back, heart thudding in my chest. This was real. And now it was mine. From that point forward, I didn't care about proving it to them. I wasn't going to knock on the Sigma Rose door and demand they apologize. I knew better. You don't beg people to believe you when they're the ones who made sure you wouldn't be believed in the first place. So instead, I started preparing for a different kind of conversation. A year later, a job posting appeared in my department's email digest. A YouTube streamer, mid-tier, known for gritty campus-based dramas, was hiring student writers for a new show filming locally. It paid. It offered credit. It required first-hand experience with campus life. I applied that night. The pitch I submitted was simple. A dramedy about sorority politics, secrets, power, perception, titled Sister Code. The next morning, I got a reply. They wanted to meet. They loved the angle. They were moving fast. I didn't flinch. Because everything they buried, I had documented. And now I had a way to resurrect it. Line by line, scene by scene. And this time, I wouldn't be in the story alone. I'd have cameras, scripts, lighting, and most importantly, an audience. You want to play pretend? Fine. But I get to direct. The first thing Liam said to me was, "You're either a genius or a liability. Possibly both." We were sitting in the back booth of a campus-adjacent coffee shop that smelled like burnt espresso and ambition. His laptop was open to a spreadsheet of line items, costume rentals, gear insurance, location permits. He wore a hoodie that said "Story is God" and looked like he hadn't slept since the table read last week. I liked him instantly. He slid my pitch doc across the table. "Sister Code," he said. "It's sharp. Real sharp. A little too sharp for the university, maybe, but exactly the kind of tension we want." I didn't tell him it wasn't just tension. It was a loaded gun. He scrolled to the budget tab. "We'll need campus sign-off if we want the quad and the Greek houses. The university's been strict since that other streamer shot here last fall without permission, so we're on a short leash." I nodded, knowing exactly what he didn't. That the leash had a name. That name was Dean Hargrove. Liam leaned back. "They'll review the scripts. Every episode. They're paranoid about real student likenesses or campus affiliations." "So we blur the lines," I said. "Change colors, names, layouts." He grinned. "Exactly." What I didn't say, I'd already done it. I'd flipped the layout of the Sigma Rose house, changed the wallpaper, reimagined the vote room as a chamber lined with campaign posters and faux democracy. But the bones were the same. The tension, the loyalty tests, the slow, silencing rot. What I also didn't say, I'd planted real fragments. One red Solo cup with a lipstick smudge and a cracked rim. A prop bottle of citrus hairspray with glitter shimmer mixed in. A wrist cuff that looked suspiciously like Maddie's bracelet. They were just background items. But stories aren't just told through plot. They're told through texture, through props, through mirrors. And mirrors, remember. A week later, I met with the university liaison in a sunlit conference room that smelled like bureaucracy. She was mid-50s, careful smile, blouse pressed to perfection. "I read your script," she said, flipping a few pages. "It's compelling, but intense." "It's fiction," I said evenly. "All names and details have been changed. The locations are modified. The plot is dramatized." She tapped her pen on a line from episode 1. "This house doesn't keep secrets. It digests them." "That's good. Dark, but good." I nodded, watching her expression shift from polite concern to something resembling curiosity. "You understand we're extremely cautious about anything that could reflect poorly on our Greek life image," she said, "especially sororities." "I understand," I said. "We're committed to responsible storytelling." She narrowed her eyes slightly. "We'll need final say over locations, and you'll need to submit updated drafts with redacted affiliations." I smiled. "Of course." What I didn't mention, I had 2 versions of every script. One for them, sanitized and vague. The other, mine, coded with truths, buried under fiction. just enough of the skeleton visible to make someone with the right eyes stop and wonder. After the meeting, I walked the campus like a location scout and a ghost. I stood across from the Sigma Rose house, phone out, taking photos of angles, not of the girls, but of the architecture. The porch swing where I used to sit, the corner where I first felt dizzy, the stone path where I woke up with vomit on my shirt and no idea how I'd gotten there. Those stones had held me. Now they would hold the story. Liam was ecstatic. "You crushed it," he said, when I told him we had conditional access. "We're locked in. If the pilot lands, we get season options." I sent him a revised draft that night. It included a new scene, interior, sorority house, night. A character stands in front of a cracked mirror. She wipes away steam from the glass. In the reflection, another girl behind her, holding a drink, spraying something unseen into the air. The description was vague. The production note, even vaguer. Optional glitter spray effect under diffused lighting. It wouldn't raise red flags. Not yet. But for those who knew, who really knew, it would feel like déjà vu. The prop master asked me where to find rose glitter spray. I sent a link to a product Maddie used to leave in every shared bathroom. It was discontinued, but I still had the bottle. I mailed it in under a fake name. The costume designer asked me about the wrist cuff. I described it from memory. Gold links, rose beads, stretchy band, slightly too loose. She found one almost identical. I watched her label it, Honey Scene 2. Honey. That was the character based on Maddie. Not a copy, more like a reflection through a fogged-up mirror. A girl who glowed so bright you didn't notice the smoke behind her. I never said Maddie's name. I never had to. Because stories want to be true. That's what I told one of the actresses when she said, "This script, it feels like something that actually happened." I looked her dead in the eye. That's because it did. Not exactly. Not like this. But close enough. She didn't ask another question. By the end of the week, we were filming the pilot. Liam brought donuts. The lighting team adjusted to golden hour tones. The actresses slipped into their lines like second skin. And I watched from the edge of the set, watching fiction take shape, watching truth stretch its legs. They thought they voted me out. They thought I'd vanish. But they gave me something better than a voice. They gave me the opening scene. I wrote the characters to be liars. Not villains, not caricatures. Liars. Girls who hid cruelty in compliments, who weaponized group chats like scalpels. I didn't give them names, at first. I gave them archetypes. Control, honey, camera. Control was the girl who never raised her voice but always got the final word. She knew every house rule and how to bend it without breaking it. Honey was the girl everyone wanted to be near. Soft voice, soft skin. The kind of charm that left bruises after. And camera, the girl who watched everything. Collected secrets like they were shiny objects, always ready to press record, but never willing to be seen. None of them were named Maddie or Hannah or Claire, but they all were. I mirrored the Sigma Rose layout in reverse. Staircase on the opposite side, furniture mismatched, walls a different hue. I removed all real names from dialogue, but I left the moments. The way Honey leaned in with a drink and a question. The way Control said, "It's not personal, it's protocol." The way camera filmed a crying girl and said, "She'll thank me later." Liam read the script and called it electric. "It's brutal, but intimate," he said. "Like you're letting us eavesdrop on something we're not supposed to hear." I was. That was the point. We held casting in the student union basement. Bare walls, folding chairs, exposed piping. The girls filed in, dozens of them, most from theater, a few from poli-sci or English. The same girls who once might have tried to rush Sigma Rose. The same type anyway. One of the actresses auditioning for Honey leaned forward after her cold read. "This scene," she said, "with the cup. It feels real. Too real." I met her eyes. "That's because stories want to be true," I told her. She nodded slowly, like she understood the code in the script, like she'd lived it. I cast her the next day. Costume pulled directly from references I fed them. Pinterest boards, old sorority composite photos, alumni newsletters, satin bomber jackets, velvet scrunchies, pink nail polish that looked childish on purpose. We weren't replicating Sigma Rose, we were distilling it. Set design flipped the house layout, but I was careful with the details. The vote room now had campaign posters from fictional elections. But behind the podium, we mounted a cracked mirror, just slightly off-center, like something forgotten during renovation. In one scene, Honey does her makeup in it. I made sure the camera lingered. The production designer asked where to find the exact glitter hairspray described in the script. I told her to mix shimmer mica with citrus essential oil and alcohol. Close enough. The label I designed myself, Bloom Mist. Printed it with a laser jet on vintage paper and aged it with tea. Every prop was a ghost of something real. And then I did something more. I planted the originals. In one scene, Control hands a pledge a drink in a red Solo cup. The prop was from my own kitchen, the same kind I used the night I was drugged. In another, a party banner reads, "Roses Forever," in looping font. That was from the actual Sigma composite photo I'd snapped years ago. These were not Easter eggs, they were minefields. I knew someone would recognize them. Someone from Sigma, or someone close. But that was the plan. I wasn't just telling a story, I was baiting a reaction, and I didn't have to wait long. After our first full run-through, one of the extras, background only, pulled me aside. "Was this based on a real house?" she asked. Her tone was casual, but her eyes weren't. "Loosely," I said. She hesitated. "Because I was at a party 2 years ago, and some of this feels like déjà vu." I didn't blink. "That's how fiction works." She nodded slowly. I watched her walk away, knowing she'd either be the first to warn them or the first to switch sides. Either way, she'd done what I wanted. She saw herself in the mirror. That week, I added 3 new lines to the script. "We don't haze," Control says. "We curate." "Honey, drink up. It tastes better if you don't ask." Camera, quietly. Some girls disappear. Others become content. Liam flagged the last one. "It's a little meta." I shrugged. "So is being erased." We filmed the pilot across 5 nights. Cold air, faulty power cords, late call times, the usual chaos. But underneath it all, a strange energy buzzed. The cast was tight-knit, like the best ensembles always are. But they weren't just acting, they were channeling something. One night, after wrap, Honey's actress found me sitting on a curb outside the location house. "She's not just a character," she said. "Is she?" I didn't lie. "No," I said. "She's a girl who let her halo become a noose." Silence. Then, "She reminds me of someone I used to know." I nodded. "That's the point." By the time we wrapped the final scene, a vote sequence, filmed with a slow zoom and glitter haze in the air, the cast was crying. Not because it was scripted, because it wasn't. Because some stories hurt on the way out. But pain is just another kind of proof. When the cameras stopped rolling, I walked back into the empty set and stared at the mirror behind the vote podium. My own face stared back. Not erased. Not vanished. Still here. And finally, seen. The pilot dropped on a Tuesday at 6 p.m. By 6:08, it had over 200,000 views. At 6:15, someone tagged a real sorority in the comments. By 6:20, the cease and desist email landed in Liam's inbox. I was standing outside the editing suite, sipping burnt coffee from a paper cup, when he stormed out, phone in hand. "Sigma Rose," he said, eyes wide. "They lawyered up." I didn't flinch. I'd been expecting this. Hell, I'd counted on it. "They're threatening to pull our location permits," he added, "and they're contacting the university." He didn't say the part he was thinking. "You said this was fiction. You promised me cover." Instead, he stared like I was a lit fuse. I reached into my bag and slid an envelope across the production table. "What is that?" he asked. "Proof," I said. He hesitated, then opened it. Inside, a hard copy of the university-vetted script with notes showing all fictional disclaimers, a list of changed names, adjusted locations, and visual deviations. And underneath that, a separate binder labeled Private, Legal Only. He opened the binder and his expression shifted. Fast. "What am I looking at?" "Metadata," I said calmly. "Screenshots, timestamps, GPS pings, camera reflections, transactions, all of it." He flipped to a page, the cropped video posted to my old Instagram. Highlighted in yellow, the mist from the glitter spray visible in a mirror, mid-frame. On the next page, a printout of a Venmo transaction between Claire and Hannah, labeled Party Roses. On the next, an Uber drop-off to a roadside motel at 2:13 a.m. "This is damning," he muttered. "It's not a confession," I said. "It's documentation." He sat back like the air had gone out of the room. "You planned this." "I archived it," I corrected. By 8 p.m., views passed 800,000. The university pulled filming access. The streamer's legal team called Liam. For 5 minutes, we thought it was over. Then, someone higher up made a call. A woman from the university's Office of Student Integrity. She'd watched the pilot. She'd seen the private binder. She'd read the metadata. She called the liaison and said, "Provisionally reinstate them." Liam looked at me like I'd conjured it. "How?" he asked. "They realized we're not the risk," I said. "The silence is." That night, I sat alone in the production lounge and watched the pilot again. It was raw, a little unpolished, but true. There was a scene, episode 1, 13 minutes in, where Control says to Honey, "You know what I hate about memory? You can't unscreen it." That line wasn't in the original draft. The actress improvised it. But it was the truest thing in the entire show. By midnight, the comments section had morphed. At first, it was the usual YouTube noise. Who's hot? Who's not? Meme quotes. Cheap theories. But then, a few viewers started asking real questions. "Wait, this house looks a lot like Sigma. Is that glitter hairspray a real product? Why does Honey's bracelet match that one viral TikTok from last year?" I didn't reply. I didn't have to. The comments were doing the work for me. Truth wants to be found. All it needs is a flashlight and a crack in the floorboards. The next morning, Liam was back on edge. "We're not out of the woods," he warned. "Sigma's reps sent another email. They're alleging that one of our actors is misrepresenting a real student." He looked at me sharply. "Did you base Honey on someone specific?" I didn't blink. "She's an amalgam." He exhaled like he didn't believe me, but couldn't prove otherwise. "They want to vet episode 2 before it drops. The streamer agreed to delay the release until next week." I nodded. I'd expected this too. "What did you expect would happen, Ava?" I looked at him, and I let the real part of me speak. I expected them to try to scare me silent again, but I'm not that girl anymore. He stared. "Besides," I added, "if they sue, they'll have to prove which parts of the story are theirs. And that's the catch, isn't it? You can't claim defamation without admitting the story is yours. They'd have to admit to the glitter, the party, the drink, the motel, the phone in my hand with the story I didn't upload. That's why they panic. Not because it's fiction, but because it's not quite fiction enough." Later that day, I sat in the edit bay with our sound designer. We were adjusting ambient audio levels for the vote room scene when I heard it. Faint, almost buried. The hiss of a spray can. "Is that in the script?" he asked. "No," I said quietly. "But keep it." He raised an eyebrow. "It's barely audible." "Exactly." He smiled like he understood. In the final cut, the hiss lives between a line of dialogue and a beat of silence. It's not foregrounded. It's a ghost. But once you hear it, you can't unhear it. That's what this entire show is. A whisper inside the roar. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. "We know what you're doing. Stop before someone gets hurt." I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, "Someone already did." The typing dots appeared, then vanished. And just like that, the silence returned. But it didn't scare me anymore, because silence is just another space to fill. And I had scripts. I had actors. I had facts. The only thing I didn't have anymore was fear. The first shot they fired wasn't legal. It was a whisper. A background extra, a junior psych major named Lexi, walked into the producer's office one morning and claimed I'd coerced her into giving a false statement about a real sorority. She said I pressured her to repeat lines she wasn't comfortable with. Said I threatened to cut her from future episodes if she didn't comply. Liam pulled me from set mid-scene. "I need to ask," he said, holding the complaint like it might burn. "Did you threaten anyone?" "No," I said. "She's willing to make a formal Title IX complaint." "Then she should," I replied, because what Lexi didn't know, or what she underestimated, was that I'd been wearing my body cam the day she came to set asking for a bigger role. The footage showed her rehearsing lines voluntarily, laughing, asking to improvise. I sent Liam the file. Within 24 hours, the complaint was withdrawn, but the damage had been done. Not to me, but to the air around me. People on set began to glance twice. Conversations stopped when I walked past. Even the honey actress, usually warm, now asked for rehearsal notes by email instead of face-to-face. Then came the second attack. A leak. My arrest photo, the one from the night I woke up in Campus PD, surfaced on a private Greek life forum. It had been cropped to make me look sloppier, darker under the eyes. It spread fast, captioned with a smirk. "Queen of Consent?" I didn't flinch. I'd already uploaded the uncropped version to our private legal archive weeks earlier, along with the time of pickup, the officer's statement, the medical log that noted suspected incapacitation, unknown substance. But the court of public opinion doesn't run on truth. It runs on perception. Then Hannah messaged the streamer directly. Her email was polished, just vague enough to raise alarm. Concerns about set culture, emotional retaliation, unsafe boundaries. She never used the word harassment. She didn't have to. It was enough to spook the legal team. Liam sat me down again. "They're asking if you're stable," he said. "If your proximity to the story is clouding your judgment." I didn't answer. Instead, I slid a second envelope across the table. Inside, a compilation of recorded interactions. Lexi taking cash from Maddie's Venmo account. A voice memo of Claire asking someone to do damage control. Hannah at the launch party, laughing with the actress who played her mirror. Liam flipped through the files, stunned. "You've been building this from the beginning." "No," I said. "Since the end. Since they tried to erase me." He exhaled, slow. "They're scared." They should be. Still, I knew fear made people desperate. That's when they do the worst damage. Not when they're confident, but when they're cornered. That's why I drew a line. Her name was Kayla, a freshman pledge. Sweet. Nervous. Always the first on set. Last to leave. She played a minor role in episode 3, a scene that echoed my own story too closely. One where a girl was filmed crying after being left in a room she didn't remember entering. Kayla looked pale when she read the script. I pulled her aside. Are you okay? I asked. She hesitated. I've seen something like this before. I don't know if I want to be in it. You don't have to be, I said. Her eyes widened. Really? I'll rewrite the scene, I told her. You can go. No questions. She nodded tearfully. I paid for her ride home myself. And that night, I cut her part from the script. Not because I was scared, but because I needed to prove, to myself maybe, that I could still be the kind of person I was before the erasure, before the glitter, before the vote. The next morning, she left a note in my inbox. You didn't have to protect me, but you did. That means something. I printed it, tucked it into my notebook. I'd always said I wasn't trying to be a hero. I just wanted the record corrected. But maybe correction starts with protection, even if no one's watching, even if no one claps. The following week, we resumed filming. The set felt quieter, but not colder. The honey actress came to me during a break. I heard about Kayla, she said. That was good of you. I shrugged. No, she said, firmer. It was decent. Decency's rare. She walked away before I could reply. That night, I rewrote the next episode's ending. The scene originally ended with Control saying, "Truth is a weapon." Now it ended with Honey replying, "Only if you aim it at the right people." Episode 3 was where everything almost fell apart, or came together, depending on how you looked at it. The story was simple on the surface. A montage of minor infractions, small sins, a cup being spiked, a signature being forged, a girl being filmed while she cried. But the implication wasn't simple at all. It was razor-edged. I pitched it in the writer's room as a split-screen sequence, 3 windows moving in sync, showing actions that, on their own, might seem trivial. Together, they became a pattern. Liam sat back after I finished explaining. It's potent, he said, and risky. Too risky? I asked. The legal team answered for him, 2 hours later. Yes. Too close to real events, they warned. Too traceable. Too many potential legal landmines. They weren't wrong. The spiked drink mirrored a real complaint buried in the campus conduct archive. The forged signature was based on a housing form I'd seen falsified by Claire herself, back when she tried to pin a broken window on a pledge. The crying girl? A direct reflection of a leaked Snapchat I'd once been sent, showing a first-year panicking after a party with no memory of how she got home. None of it was fiction. Not really. But truth, when handled recklessly, becomes liability. And I wasn't reckless. I was calculated. So I stripped the dialogue, rebuilt the entire scene in silence. Instead of words, I used cinema. The spiked drink? We showed the hiss of a glitter spray can under ultraviolet light, caught in the background of a slow pan. Subtle, but unmistakable. The forged signature? I changed it to an administrative stamp, one that never existed in the year it was supposedly applied. A quiet anachronism only someone truly observant would notice. The crying girl? We never showed her face. Just the red glow of a camcorder's recording light, reflected in a tear rolling down someone else's cheek. The images were sharper than any dialogue could have been. When we screened the rough cut, Liam looked stunned. Viewers are going to do the math, he said. Good, I replied. You're not naming names, but I don't have to. The actresses were silent after the scene ended. Honey's voice broke first. This feels like an accusation, she said softly. It's an invitation, I told her, to pay attention. The episode dropped on a Friday at midnight. By Saturday afternoon, Reddit threads were swarming, Twitter lit up. A TikTok with over 300,000 likes broke down the mirror shot, the glitter haze that only appeared under certain lighting. A girl in the comments wrote, "Wait, Didn't someone say something like this happened at Sigma Rose? No names were mentioned, no identities confirmed, but the connection was made. One post read, "If this is fiction, it's the most accurate fiction I've ever seen." And then, the tipping point. A donor's daughter, an alumna who worked in administrative affairs, recognized the fake stamp used in the forged signature scene. She commented, anonymously at first, then publicly. That stamp wasn't used in that year. That's deliberate. Someone knew that. The thread exploded. Within hours, the university board received a formal inquiry about falsified documentation practices. Meanwhile, a teaching assistant from the film department messaged the streamer's legal team. She'd spotted Claire's old camera, a vintage DV model, in an unused B-roll clip from 2 years ago. Its serial number matched one logged in a discontinued university equipment database. She turned it over. And just like that, it wasn't just entertainment anymore. It was evidence. By Monday, Title IX had opened a preliminary file. By Wednesday, Greek counsel issued a statement suspending Sigma Rho's pending review, and by Friday, the streamer ordered a full season. Quietly, they instructed legal counsel to cooperate with the university if contacted. We weren't just telling a story anymore. We were a pipeline. I stood in the editing bay that night, staring at the final insert shot. 3 windows, paused mid-motion. The glitter mist, the fake stamp, the camcorder glow. None of them loud, none of them obvious, but all of them real. This wasn't about vengeance. Not really. It was about proof. Quiet proof. The kind that outlives denials. The kind that changes outcomes. I turned to the assistant editor. "Leave the sound design raw," I said. "Don't clean it up." "Even the background hiss?" she asked. "Especially that." She nodded. Before I left, I added a final note to the episode credits. Not visible in the main scroll, just tucked at the end of the metadata, for the sharpest eyes only. Some stories are fiction, others are reflections. That night, I received no threats, no calls, just silence. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was waiting. The thing about exposure is, once the first thread is pulled, the whole tapestry unravels. 2 days after episode 3 dropped, the board received an email from a trustee's daughter. It was short, 3 lines, tops. She referenced the fictional stamp in the episode and attached a screenshot of her own university documents from the same year. Her question was pointed. If this is a fictional show, why does it depict an administrative stamp that was quietly phased out 5 years ago? It wasn't the accusation that mattered. It was who was asking it. She was a donor's kid. Her name carried weight, not because she was loud, but because her father paid for the engineering lab wing. Her email made its way to the university president in under an hour. That same morning, a teaching assistant from the film department, quiet, low-ranking, sent in a piece of footage she'd been sitting on for weeks. A B-roll clip from a student short film shot near the Sigma Rose house 2 years ago. In the background, caught in the frame, Claire, holding the same model of DV camera used in episode 3's crying girl sequence. The timestamp matched the night I blacked out. And the serial number? Still etched into the grip. That clip wasn't a smoking gun. But it was smoke, and smoke meant fire. Someone just needed to dig. By noon, Title IX had opened a formal review. Greek council suspended Sigma Rose's charter, pending further findings. The university PR team released a soft statement. "We value student-led storytelling and take any concerns of misconduct seriously." Which was administration speak for, "We've seen the episode, and now we're lawyering up." Liam called me just after the news broke. "They're not fighting the show anymore," he said. "They're following it." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. The streamer's legal team followed up minutes later with a separate message. "Season 1 is greenlit. Please submit expanded outline." Quietly, they added that they'd be cooperating with the university. Off the record, if necessary. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I sat in my apartment and watched the comment section on episode 3. It had mutated overnight. People weren't debating whether the story was too real anymore. They were organizing, posting timelines, finding receipts, naming names. One thread laid it all out: the glitter mist, the stamp, the bracelet, the girl crying, the connections between my fiction and their memories. It was as if my storyboard had become a map, and now strangers were following it backward to the source. Someone even created a Google Doc, a live editable lore file for the show. Except they weren't just theorizing about characters, they were identifying real behaviors, real systems, real patterns. And when the freshman who played the erased pledge in episode 2 posted a video on TikTok, just lip-syncing her monologue from the scene, it exploded. Over 1 million views in 3 days. The caption said, "What if this wasn't just a show?" I stared at it for a long time, because that was the question I'd been writing toward all along. What if the fiction is the only way the truth could speak? The Honey actress DM'd me that night. "Did you mean for it to get this big?" I answered honestly. "No, I just meant for it to be heard." Later that week, a campus journalist reached out, said she was writing a piece for the student magazine. Not about me, about the ripple effects, about how the show was making students reevaluate what they'd brushed off as drama or rumors, or just how things are. She interviewed a pledge who had dropped Sigma Rose after the pilot aired. The girl told her, "I watched the vote room scene, and I knew, if I stayed, I'd end up on the wrong side of someone else's edit." It wasn't guilt that cracked things open. It was recognition. Stories don't just indict, they illuminate. At the end of the week, the campus liaison called me in for a meeting. She looked different than she had the first time. Less polished, more tired, maybe more honest. "I've watched every episode," she said, not making eye contact. "I need to ask, how much of it is real?" I smiled. "Enough." She nodded slowly. "We're opening hearings. Title IX is requesting documentation. Would you be willing to share your materials privately?" I reached into my bag, pulled out the same binder I'd handed Liam. It was heavier now. Annotated. Color-coded. "Already prepared." She took it like she was touching something radioactive. I stood to leave. "Ms. Ortiz," she said as I reached the door, "you understand that this could implicate people." "I hope it does," I said. She didn't stop me. Outside, campus was buzzing, not just online, but in real life. Flyers, posters, a group of girls chalking the sidewalk with quotes from the show. One read, "Truth isn't loud, it's persistent." I walked past them, hood up, unnoticed. That was the strange gift of having been erased. You learn how to move invisibly, how to document from the shadows. But now the story was stepping into the light. And no one, not Sigma Rose, not Claire, not Hannah, not Maddie, could stop it. Because they weren't in control anymore. The narrative was. It was a closed-door session. No press, no cameras, no spectators. Just 6 chairs, a long table, and the heaviness of what we were there to do. I wasn't there as a complainant. I wasn't there as an accused. I was summoned as what they called a creative witness, a term I'm certain they invented for me, halfway between participant and whistleblower. When I walked into the room, Maddie was already seated. So was Claire. Hannah arrived a few minutes later, her face tight and pale. No matching bracelets today, no curated smiles. They looked smaller in person. Or maybe I'd just stopped seeing them as myth. The dean began the proceedings with an advisory note. No phones, no recording, no direct accusations. This wasn't a trial. It was an inquiry. But truth has its own agenda. I kept my face still. kept my breathing even. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't grandstand. I simply slid a flash drive across the table. This contains scene comparisons, I said. Shot compositions, metadata, and verified dates. Some of it lines up with documented campus incidents. Some of it doesn't need context. It speaks for itself. The board didn't blink. They'd been briefed. I'd also like to play something, I said. I pulled out a compact speaker, cleared in advance, and hit play. The room filled with ambient noise, a party, laughter. Then, the hiss of an aerosol, and the phrase I remembered verbatim: "Press against the light, it won't see your face." Claire flinched. Hannah looked down. Maddie didn't move, but her jaw clenched. I let the silence after the clip stretch just long enough. Next, I presented a printed timeline. One column for scenes from the show, one for events from Sigma Rose's own social calendar, screen-capped before my socials were wiped. I let them compare. "You claim this is fiction," one board member said. "It is," I replied. "But fiction can only haunt if it remembers the floor plan." They didn't argue. They didn't need to. The evidence had already begun to do its own work. An independent investigator reviewed the files, interviewed pledges, some who'd left quietly, others who'd stayed but regretted it. One brought forward a group chat with Hannah bragging about how you can deep crop anything and they'll blame themselves. Another, anonymously, handed over a Sigma group note about mitigating fallout from the pilot. The red line through everything? Documentation, screenshots, receipts, reflections. The camcorder's red light glinting in a tear, the glitter haze caught in frame, the administrative stamp that hadn't existed for 5 years, found on multiple sorority forms during that period. The pattern was undeniable. One by one, the board issued their outcomes. Maddie, expelled. Not for what happened to me directly, but for orchestrating the tampering of evidence and facilitating unsafe environments. Claire, referred to psychiatric care, her equipment confiscated, code of conduct violation sustained. Hannah, academic dishonesty, retaliation, and conduct unbecoming. Her degree was rescinded, pending appeal. Sigma Rose, charter revoked. Their house, once the crown jewel of campus Greek life, was closed indefinitely. I didn't cry, but I felt something settle in my chest, something I hadn't felt since the vote room. Closure? No. Just the truth. Standing upright. Finally. The liaison escorted me out of the building personally. As we reached the front steps, she turned. "You realize," she said, "you've changed how these proceedings will work going forward." "I didn't set out to," I told her. "I just couldn't let them direct my story anymore." She nodded. "We've never had anything like this. A show as evidence, a narrative that revealed more than an affidavit." "I didn't have power," I said. "So I used structure. I used story." She looked at me, long and hard. "You used it well." That night, I walked across campus with the sun setting behind me, burning gold over the quad. I passed the Sigma Rose house without stopping. The letters had been removed, the curtains drawn. Empty now. They had once been untouchable. Now they were just gone. My phone buzzed. A text. It was from the freshman I'd protected, the one I rewrote out of a scene months ago. "I heard what happened. I'm safe. Just wanted you to know." I stared at the screen, unmoving. Then typed, "You still safe?" The reply came fast. "Because you wrote it that way." I closed my eyes and let the words settle. Not victory, but something better. A record. It ended where it started. The vote room. Only now, it wasn't full of hairspray and high heels, manicured hands raised in judgment. No citrus mist clouded the air. No whispered calculations behind long lashes. The mirror on the back wall was still cracked, but now it was honest about it. I stood alone, the space hollowed out by memory. Even the light felt different, cooler, sterile, like the truth had finally disinfected it. I plugged in the UV lamp. It hummed softly, a violet glow blooming across the walls. And there it was, the residue. Glitter specks invisible in daylight, now blooming like bruises under forensic light. A trail along the edge of the table, across the wall behind the chair where I sat. On the floor, a faint outline of a heel. Whoever sprayed it stood there, angled just right for the camera to miss her. Evidence, not memory. Truth doesn't need permission. It just needs the right frequency. I set a labeled flash drive on the table. Sister Code, Production. Bible, Evidence Index. Inside, final scripts, prop lists, deleted scenes, annotated receipts, time-stamped edits, body cam footage, audio overlays, the master spreadsheet of correlations between fiction and file. Not to settle a score, to preserve a record. Because if no one remembers, it could happen again. Different names, same pattern. A new girl, another vote, a new drink, another vanishing. I walked around the room one last time. The silence here didn't haunt me anymore. It listened. Then I did what I'd promised myself I would from the beginning. I turned to the camera we set up for the final insert of the bonus episode, a director's log of sorts. No monologue, no script. Just this. I looked dead center and said, "Truth isn't a confession. It's the cut you can't edit out." Then I left. Out into the hallway, where the walls no longer echoed with laughter that always came with a warning. Out onto campus, where fall had cracked the air open, crisp and new. As I reached the quad, my phone buzzed. A notification, one I hadn't expected. Green light approved, new series development, bystander courage, Ava Ortiz attached as showrunner. I stopped walking, not in shock, in recognition. I had a choice again. This wasn't survival anymore. It was authorship. I stared at the green light message, then opened my texts. Scrolled down to the contact I hadn't touched since the hearing, the freshman. "You still safe?" She replied 3 dots, then, "Because you wrote it that way." I looked up. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows on buildings that once held my silence. They could try to rebuild Sigma Rose's image, recharter, rename, rebrand. But they could never unmake the story, because it lived now, not just on paper, not just on screen, but in every girl who'd ever felt her own memory dismissed, in every whisper reinterpreted as drama, every tear minimized as emotional, every glitter trace that seemed too faint to matter. They taught me that erasure could wear lip gloss. I taught them that evidence could wear eyeliner. And when you mix memory with method, you don't just tell the story, you archive it. Permanent, indelible, unignorable, fade out, UV still humming, cut.